The year is 1876. The United States dispatches its celebrated hero, George Custer, to dismantle Sitting Bull's defiance in Montana. Yet, as the general ascends a ridge, the scene before him is far more intense than anticipated. Unfazed, Custer grins, lifts his hat, and shouts, "Hurrah, boys! We've got them." Unbeknownst to him, he is stepping into one of the most massive Native American war encampments ever gathered, and no backup is coming to his rescue. Within an hour, every one of his soldiers lies dead. Custer's legacy is forever tied not to triumph but to one of the most devastating failures in U.S. military history. How did this disaster unfold? This is the astonishing tale of Custer's final battle. George Custer was the son of an Ohio farmer, a man of extraordinary ambition. He hungered for fame and a permanent mark in history. As a youth, he was clever, daring, and self-assured. In 1857, he enrolled at West Point, where he accumulated a staggering 726 disciplinary infractions, more than any cadet before him. Yet, even his instructors and peers couldn't ignore his potential as an exceptional soldier. The Civil War provided Custer the opportunity to prove himself. A gifted officer, Custer secured numerous victories during the war, always leading his troops from the front. He became known for charging into battles others feared to enter, never demanding his man do anything he wouldn't do himself. His soldiers revered him, and his superiors were so impressed that, at just 23, he became one of the youngest generals in American history. The press nicknamed him the Boy General. Soon, the nation knew of the bold General Custer, with his flamboyant persona and signature flowing golden hair. On July 3, 1863, Custer and his men defended the Union line at Gettysburg. Leading the charge in full officer's regalia, he broke through Confederate forces at a pivotal moment, turning the battle in the Union's favor. His exemplary service continued until the war's final day. The table on which Robert E. Lee signed his surrender, later gifted to Custer's wife, bore an inscription: "No man did more to secure this surrender than your husband." After the war, Custer was tasked with leading the 7th Cavalry to confront the Plains Indians. He despised the assignment, believing it denied him further glory. It wasn't until 1868 that another chance for fame arose. As the U.S. pushed westward, it set its sights on the Black Hills. The Sioux, who already inhabited the land, resisted. In April 1868, the Sioux and the U.S. signed the Fort Laramie Treaty, granting the Sioux rights to the Black Hills, provided they ceased attacks on settlers and remained on reservations. But the U.S. never intended to honor the agreement. The Black Hills were too valuable, and officials anticipated settlers would provoke the Sioux into breaking the treaty. Most Sioux, unaware of this deceit, agreed, except for Chief Sitting Bull. A Lakota leader, Sitting Bull rejected the treaty, convinced the U.S. would encroach regardless. Resistance, he believed, was the only way to preserve their way of life. Unlike Custer, Sitting Bull was deliberate and composed. His name reflected his habit of careful deliberation. But he was more than a warrior, he was a spiritual guide, claiming visions from the Great Spirit that foretold victory over the Americans. With his trusted ally, the Lakota warrior Gall, Sitting Bull united nomadic tribes to resist American expansion. They raided settlements and rival tribes like the Crow and Arikara. After Fort Laramie, attacks on U.S. outposts escalated. The government needed a bold leader to stop Sitting Bull. They needed George Custer. In October 1868, Custer and the 7th Cavalry set out. Winter was approaching when native camps were most vulnerable. On November 26, Custer tracked a Cheyenne village in Oklahoma. At dawn the next day, he led a brutal assault, killing 103, mostly women and children. His second-in-command, Major Joel Elliott, pursued fleeing Cheyenne but never returned. Custer, prioritizing his own ambitions, withdrew without waiting for Elliott, whose body was later found with his men. Many in the 7th Cavalry blamed Custer for Elliott's death, especially Captain Frederick Benteen, who publicly condemned him. Despite the controversy, Custer's reputation revived. Hailed as a frontier hero, he spent years battling native resistance. In 1873, he was stationed at Fort Abraham Lincoln in Dakota, closer to Sitting Bull's stronghold. Two key figures entered his story then: Major Marcus Reno, a temperamental officer who despised Custer, and Bloody Knife, a Sioux Arikara scout and Custer's ally. Bloody Knife had a personal vendetta against Sitting Bull and Gall, who had killed his family. In 1874, Custer led an expedition into the Black Hills, officially to scout a fort site but secretly to spark a gold rush. The mission was more spectacle than combat, with photographers documenting Custer's adventures. Gold was discovered, and by late 1875, 15,000 settlers flooded the region. President Ulysses S. Grant exploited this, waiting for Sioux retaliation to justify seizing the land entirely. In September 1875, Washington offered to buy the Black Hills. Sitting Bull's warnings proved true. The Sioux refused. Grant issued an ultimatum: any Lakota or Cheyenne not on reservations by January 1876 would be deemed hostile. The demand was impossible, Winter made relocation deadly. On May 17, 1876, the campaign against Sitting Bull began. General Alfred Terry led the main force, with Custer commanding the 7th Cavalry. Reports placed Sitting Bull along the Yellowstone River, where 4 tributaries converged: the Powder, Tongue, Rosebud, and Little Bighorn. Terry's plan was to trap the Sioux between 3 armies: Custer from the south, General John Gibbon from the west, and General George Crook from the south. Custer treated the march as a leisurely excursion, frustrating Terry and his officers. On June 17, Crazy Horse ambushed Crook's forces at the Rosebud, forcing a retreat. Unaware of this, Custer pressed on. On June 25, scouts spotted Sitting Bull's camp near the Little Bighorn. Custer, ignoring warnings of overwhelming numbers, split his 700 men. He led 200 north. Reno attacked from the south, and Benteen circled west. Reno's assault faltered immediately. Drunk and panicked, he retreated after Bloody Knife was killed, his brains splattering Reno's face. Benteen, receiving Custer's plea for reinforcements, ignored it, later claiming Custer had abandoned them. Custer, meanwhile, charged toward the village, hoping to take hostages. But thousands of warriors, led by Crazy Horse and Gall, surrounded his men. Trapped on Last Stand Hill, Custer and his troops were annihilated. Witnesses described Custer standing defiantly amid the carnage. By sunset on June 26, Reno and Benteen, besieged on Reno Hill, were rescued by Terry's arrival. The bodies of Custer and his men were found mutilated. News of the disaster shocked America, which had just celebrated its centennial. Some blamed Custer's recklessness, others Benteen and Reno's inaction. Few acknowledged the Sioux's tactical brilliance. Sitting Bull had won a staggering victory, but the U.S. would return with vengeance.